Hello, today let's talk about how to do Polypaint with Spotlight in ZBrush. Today we're going to paint the jeans. Okay, first of all, let's go to textures.com. You can find some pretty nice textures there. Okay. I'm interested in fabric jeans, so you can find some textures good for us. For example, this one, and also some stitches. Yeah, these are good example. Okay. So I download all these textures and we'll use them in my tutorial. I have downloaded these textures. Let me take a look. Basically, it covers all the details, almost all the details of the jeans. But before doing the jeans, let me give you a quick overview of the spotlight functionality in ZBrush. Okay, I create a ball. I chose a shader that can clearly show the material and the textures. The default mode for ZBrush is Z-Add, basically you sculpt. But in our tutorial, I'm going to paint colors, so I don't need sculpting, but I need turn on RGB to paint colors. Okay. When I choose a color, you can see the whole geometry color changed. Okay, so before doing any color picking, I need to fill the object with white color, which is my default color. Okay, after this, I change to red color. I can start to paint RGB color onto the geometry. And also a quick note, the masking also works here. For example, if I mask out an area that I don't want to change, okay, I don't want to change the color of this area, okay, I can mask out an area. Now if I paint color, I choose a green color, okay, then I can paint only the unmasked area. Okay, you don't need to worry about accidentally painting into some area that you don't want to paint on. Okay. Another note, because we're doing Polypaint, basically we're painting on vertices of polygons, right? So the detail of our Polypaint depending on the resolution of the geometry. Now let's take a look at the spotlight functionality. First thing, let's dock the texture palette. Okay, we need the functionality here. First, let's click on the texture button. Okay, it shows you all the textures loaded into current section of ZBrush. Let's use this one. The hotkey for turning on and off spotlight is Shift-Z, Shift plus letter Z. Okay, but first thing we need to add the texture to the spotlight. Okay, so click on the button, add the current texture to the spotlight. This button here. Okay, then you can see that the spotlight is on, and you can see an image on top of your geometry. All the functionality that a spotlight can do are arranged on this wheel. You can scale the image by clicking this icon, and you can rotate the image. If you click and drag inside the view, but outside the small orange circle, you will drag and move the image. But if you click and drag within the small orange circle, you will move the view only. Press hotkey Z to hide the view. Now we can apply the color from the image onto the geometry by projecting it onto the geometry. But again, now it's hard to see what we are painting. Press C again to toggle the view on. We need to give some value to the spotlight radius so that we can show some portion only. Press C again to hide the view. Now we can only see a small portion of the image around the cursor. And let me change the brush size and start to project the image onto our geometry. Remember, when you're painting a high detail texture like this chain texture, you need to have enough resolution on the geometry. So for me, I need to increase the poly count, okay, so that I can see the highly detailed texture. And sometimes you got this stitch line, but you don't want this straight line. You can use the notch functionality of the spotlight. Okay, this one, the notch. Click on the notch and just brush on the image to tweak the image so that the line is not straight anymore. It's more organic looking. Okay, after you finish tweaking the line, then you can start to paint onto the geometry, so you have a more natural looking stitch line. Okay, enough test. Let's work on my real model. This is a sculpture I've done some time ago that I would like to paint a texture for the jeans. I tried starting with a resolution of 1.8 million. Okay, I imported all the textures I needed. Then I will add the basic texture to the spotlight and scale the size down. Press G to hide the wheel and zoom in and rotate so that the texture align with the geometry. Now I can start to paint onto my geometry. After the test, I realized the resolution is not enough. 1.8 million is not enough. So I go divide the geometry one more time. So now I have 7.4 million. This is pretty much a bit too high. You can keep it as 4 to 5 million. But I will give this a try. Okay, now you can see the detailed texture. Please note, this is a projection of image onto the geometry. So at the bottom, when the geometry turns, your projection will stretch. So you have to only paint the center area this time and rotate paint in all different directions. To remove all the stretch lines, stretch textures. Here I didn't turn on symmetry. You can do that. That will save you a lot of time because this is the base layer of the texture, right? Doesn't have any wrinkles, any accessories, pockets, details. Only the base color and texture. So you can turn on symmetry. Okay, so I slowly build one part by one part. Another tip is that try not to scale your geometry, because if you scale your geometry, the texture resolution, the texture scale will change. So you have smaller detail and versus bigger detail, so they don't match anymore. So try not to scale your geometry, only rotate. And I also didn't scale the texture also. Okay, the front set is done. I can start to add in the detail of the pocket. Unfortunately, my ZBrush crashed. Then I redid the base layer of texture with a resolution of 4 to 5 million. Then I start to add in the details of the stitches and seams and pockets. Right. Another tip here is to lower the opacity of the image, okay, of the spotlight. Okay, that doesn't, it will not affect the color you project onto the geometry. It only lower the opacity of the spotlight UI. Okay. That way it's very good for you to position, align the pocket with your geometry model. After finishing the pocket, I start to reuse some parts of the image again. And another tip here is to, when you paint on small little details, try to use a smaller brush size. Now it's time to paint the stitches. Okay, so here I imported another texture with a quite straight stitch line, but I want to nudge it. Okay, I want to nudge it. Increase the opacity so I can see clearly the image, and nudge it scale it so they match roughly the scale of other textures. And I don't want this straight line. I need to nudge the image a bit to make it a bit natural looking. Okay. After that is done, then I will use a relatively small size brush to paint this onto the jeans we have. For some of the borders that doesn't match, the color doesn't match, don't worry, we can later come back again, revisit to fix the color change again. Okay. Continue, align the stitches and continue painting. Okay, after the stitch is done, I choose a lighter color jeans texture. This one, no, yeah. Yeah, this one. Okay, I will paint the wrinkle because the wrinkle you supposed to be lighter color. after the wrinkles all done, the last step would be use the base texture again to blend all the transitions between different textures, basically. Okay, so I choose the base texture and look for areas that doesn't look good. Okay, I start to come in to blend the color a bit more. So that's all for today's quick tutorial on how to paint Janes in ZBrush using Spotlight. Hope you enjoy it. See you next time. Bye.